So, welcome to the show. I'm joined by my guest, Dr. Ross Solis.
Hello.
Hello. From Vibrant Soul Chiropractic out in Oklahoma. How's it going?
Very good, sir. How are you, man?
I'm good. Thanks for joining me today.
It's my pleasure. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, let me get this right. So, you want to talk about breathing and how it relates to the brain. Is that correct?
Yes, brain, life, existence, consciousness. I pretty much anything that breath can affect. Yeah, I'd love to share as much as we can share in 30 to 40 minutes because I could talk hours about it. So that's
Cool.
it. Intentional breathing or conscious breathing specifically, but the neurology of it, the benefits of it, the clinical aspects of it, how we can use it in any way, form, or fashion. Yeah.
All right. Great. So, let's get started with maybe what are some studies that you've read, and which patients do you really like to approach or use this approach with?
In terms of studies, we talked briefly before starting the recording here. It really is an addiction of mine, I think. So anytime I'm scrolling and, whether on Facebook and, I think in our world specifically, I think a lot of us will subscribe to those neuroscience news, and update neuroscience, everything, and anything that's breath-based, I will read it, review it. So I can't think of one off the top of my head specifically in terms of breathing. I know recently I shared some stuff on my public professional page on Facebook where, more and more literature is starting to review specifically longer exhalations for breathing for specific functions and improvements and benefits. But, before even doing this, I've, recall, studies in the past 5-10 years talking about inhalation specifically and the benefits of that. And then, of course, I think we were all taught through the Diplomate program and just, mind-body science, the exhalation aspect of it. And then, even deeper literature, I think, again, in the past 5-10 years, the discovery, if you will, because I think it's always been known, but the actual validation of the pre-Botzinger or Butzinger cells in the brainstem and their purpose on pacemaking or being the pacemaker of breathing and rhythm. Mm-hmm. So, man, in terms of literature, it goes forever. That's what's so cool about this topic is there's no shortage of now neuroscience and just traditional mind-body health and proving that, yeah, if you intentionally breathe certain ways, you can have intentional benefits. Right. In terms of patients, right now it's everybody. If you're a patient of mine, if you come across this and you're seeing this or hearing it, whether with the brain centers in Dallas or in my internship in clinic, through my doctorate program, through my current patients, it's hard for me to not tell everyone about it. Mm-hmm. What I do tweak is how I communicate and emphasize the importance of the breath, maybe, or the technique in which or how we're going to use breath will depend on which patients. Mm-hmm. Again, based off their comprehension, their cognitive abilities, their intentional abilities. But honestly, right now I'm very blessed to work in my own private practice for the past almost 2 years now, and I have the gamut, man, from just back pain, neck pain to quadriplegic, strokes, seizures, autistic, the world that we were trained in. Mm-hmm. And they all get taught breathing, so I can't think of one specifically. It could be maybe argued that the neurological deficient ones need it the most because they're already in a state of, dysfunction, if you will. But I can also debate the other way where if I teach these people breathing early on and intentional breathing to just traditional low back pain, neck pain, or muscle spasms or high blood pressure, then ideally they won't get to the more severe, cases. But again, it's all just proactive and reactive, man. I use it for everything and anything, to be honest.
All right, that's great. Is there like a patient population or maybe a story that you can share with us of someone whose life that just absolutely changed after just
I can give
breathing?
you, there's a few, and we talked again, you made me really kind of prime my brain about, my patients and, what have we done with this. And I can try to, I'll kind of give examples of the age range.
Mm-hmm.
I tell a lot of my patients, I use pulse ox for a lot of this stuff. It's instant feedback. They get, instant gratification and release of dopamine from the fact that they just dropped heart rate, if that's our goal, intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a story of at the rehab centers I got the chance to work with a severe pandas patient.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You let me know how much we need to elaborate on what these words means. But pandas, is an autoimmune condition to the basal ganglion in the brain. There's a lot of emotionality issues. There's a lot of self-control and psychiatric issues essentially, and it is an immune-based problem, but it has a lot of neurological expressions.
Mm-hmm.
And she was I think 9 years old by the time I got to meet her. In all honesty, I got the good version of her, because after I got to see her, she'd already gone through immunotherapy and she'd been really down-regulated from what her pandas was. I mean, I'd heard stories of her coming into the clinic, and we put her into the rotational machine, and she'd leave claw marks in to our nurses or our medical assistants because she was just so combative.
Mm-hmm.
And then at one point I heard that for 2 years she'd been trying to ride a bike, or learn how to ride a bike. So she was 9 when I saw her, so since 7 she'd been trying to ride a bike, but I don't remember the details, but I just remember it wasn't happening. And I kind of again came in on the back end where I got to do neuro rehab with her. So essentially we turned down the fire, or the clinicians did that. I got to come in and teach her these ways of using the body and using the body itself to regulate brain functions. And we taught her how to slow her heart rate down, and for whatever reason that 9-year-old girl just loved it. She ate it up, and I think for the first time, maybe, again, this is some of it's speculation because you don't really get to ask these questions to a 9-year-old necessarily, but I would think that she finally got instant feedback that, hey, I'm in control of some of this. Even though I get these crazy urges and these sensations, I have another task now that I can do to regulate it or control it. And I think within 2 days of attempting to ride a bike, she learned how to ride a bike. Mm-hmm. Maybe the breathing helped, but again, I think the biggest success from it came from a story where the mom said, I think we talked back and forth after seeing her for a little while, and she went to her teachers when she went back to school, and the little girl wore the pulse ox around her neck, and the mom went to the teacher and says, hey, if it's okay, something along the lines of, do you mind if my daughter, she does really well with these breathing exercises, is it okay if she wears it? Is it okay that she does these breathing breaks, if you will? And the teacher said absolutely. And then I think I heard later on that at one point that teacher saw the benefit on this girl, that she would stop the entire class, and the entire class would do breathing breaks. And that again, I joke and I'm somewhat serious, so that's, I can't, but I could imagine if I had to stop practicing today, I would be so grateful still that I got the opportunity to help a little girl, and then that teacher saw the little girl improve, and then now all these little kids got a benefit from it, from intentional breathing. And maybe that, maybe some kids went on with that, I don't know, but I can think it. So that was a huge one for me. That was really cool because there was a ripple effect from just teaching one person. I was, again, from stories of getting worked with special operation veterans, Navy SEALs, and many of stories of Navy SEALs getting to work with them, and they getting to work with me, and teaching them how to do enough self-regulation and intentional breathing that they can fall asleep for the first time in years, or focus better in years, control anger for the first time in years. And those are big successes because at the time in my practice when I was working with them, they are these elite people, the alpha males, the guy, the movies, the people that they make movies about, and what can I teach them that they don't already know? Because these are snipers, and snipers know how to breathe. These are elite killers. They know how to breathe. But, I think if you get hit in the head enough and you get, I think their training was used for a purpose, but I think at times they couldn't use that training for walking through the aisles at Walmart. Mm-hmm. So I was able to remind them more for those that patient base, remind them what they can do mentally to regulate self, so they could go remember lists better. And then to the other spectrum of working with a severely ataxic, at the time she was a teenager, 16, 15, who the cerebellum was essentially completely, I wouldn't say completely dysfunctional, but she couldn't talk, her voice shook, she couldn't give you a high five without hurting herself or running into something because there was no control of the limbs. Mm-hmm. And but at the time I was like, why not try this? So I was like, because that's the beauty, and maybe we can get into it. Really do believe that with breathing, I've done it with progressive supranuclear palsy, severe cerebellar atrophy, 9-year-olds, 7-year-olds. I teach my little 3-year-old how to do some breathing the best I can. I think any level of consciousness, if it's conscious, you can do this. But I've never done it with this severe a patient because, again, as a new student looking at this girl shaking everywhere, you're thinking, what can I do? I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm not the big names. You compare yourself to their knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, you know what? Let's see if you can touch this dot. And she couldn't. It was all over the place. I was like, all right, I want you to do this intentional breath with me. I'll mirror her. I show her how to do it. I'm very big in using mirror neurons. So I get in your face and you watch me do it. You feel me do it. You hear me do it. And sure enough, dude, she went and touched that dot with so
Awesome.
much control that the family, all of us were like, what the hell just happened, man? And it was just from breathing. I'm like, wow, okay, breathing is kind of I could be good at this. I use it for myself. I use it for these patients. So again, I can go on and on about patients who have dropped blood pressure to textbook, levels of a norm, and pain levels dropping.
Yeah.
I don't know. I go on and on. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
that's a start.
yeah, day one of, neurology training, right? What do we learn?
Hmm.
Like, the brain needs three things to survive, right?
Oxygen, fuel, and activation. Yeah, man.
Exactly. So how are they getting the oxygen? Making
And the
sure that.
best, and breathing is all of them, I think,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely,
It's
because you get
yeah,
the stimulation as well, and
yep,
appropriate fuel delivery. Yeah.
it's
So
right.
that's so foundational.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
And
So,
that's
oh, good.
sorry, but that's again right now I get to reform myself because I was stuck in this paradigm of intensives, which is I still love. They are fun. I get a chance to do them rarely now, but I've learned that the foundations of what you said has gotten me so far from posture, breathing, and oxygen or water,
Hmm.
hydration, posture, and water. I do that with, and I say I do that meaning I really emphasize the necessity of those things, and patients are getting better for longer and for quicker. And better obviously is, we can define that too, but there's a spectrum of that as well. But
Hmm.
you can't go wrong by saying, hey, breathe,
Hmm.
drink water, and sit up the best you can.
Right.
And next thing you know, your practice becomes a little more efficient.
Yeah. And you had sent me a video prior to our talk, which I really liked. It was a TED talk about breathing,
Hmm.
and the speaker he pointed out that we're allotted smoke breaks, which is ironic,
Yeah.
but why not breathing breaks, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And I use that analogy for all these discussions. I mean, technology today, how often do we pick this up?
Hmm.
Well, not intentionally sometimes. That's again a lot of it goes back to intention. I listened to another podcast talk, and I think you might have talked about in that we're not always we think we're in control of these, but maybe they control us more than we like to admit,
Hmm.
because you look for it whenever you haven't been on it for a while. Where's my phone?
Right.
We can. So I use that as an example that we take smoke breaks, we take phone breaks, and for humor we take poop breaks, man. Like, why not take one moment? I give times to 3 breaths to 60 seconds. Recently, I've been on this 2-minute kick.
Hmm.
2 minutes out of all the minutes in a day to just do an intentional breathing exercise. And we can get into, it's not, for me, I'm evolving my practice. It's not always exercise. It's not always 4-4-8s or 3-3-6s or 4-7-8. Sometimes it's just, can you hear it?
Hmm.
Like, do you know if you're breathing? Most people are like, well, I think. Like, well, obviously you are because you wouldn't be here. But just even that, take a minute to just, am I breathing? Oh, okay, yes I am. And go about your day.
Hmm.
And that goes a long way as well.
Yeah. So, would you mind, for our viewers who are watching,
Hmm.
would you mind giving us a little demonstration about a proper breathing technique?
Yeah. Again, to kind of spread that out, to the breathing technique, you can come at in different ways.
Hmm.
I can tell you how I used to do it. It used to be very much on breathing biomechanics first,
Hmm.
because it makes sense if you're going to have someone ride a bike, you got to make sure they know the mechanics of a bike. So to teach someone to breathe, I always talk about diaphragmatic breathing, using the abdomen to breathe, using the chest to breathe seconds, as a secondary thing. But there's even, I think, a video on YouTube somewhere where I have my hand here and here, and if you want to breathe, make sure when you breathe, the bottom half moves the most, and the top hand can move. Some people think, oh, I can't chest breathe. No, you're allowed to. It's just make sure you know the ratio, right? 70%, 30%-ish.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very big in making sure people use the diaphragm. And also breathe wide. That's a big thing I've learned too, because you can breathe out belly-wise, but that becomes uncomfortable. So if you can actually put your arms here and take a big inhale and work on expanding the rib cage as well as the abdomen, biomechanically that is an enhanced way to breathe more efficiently. And of course, yoga teaches this. A lot of musicians learn these things, specifically breathwork musicians, woodwinds, brass, singers. Swimmers are very familiar with this. But and honestly, that's a down and dirty explanation of what I would give. And so the cool thing, though, about what I'm doing now is I don't get the same amount of time I used to get at the intensives, because we see people 3 times a day for an hour-ish, right, for 5 days, 10 days. So anywhere in that time I can spread out the lesson. But my biggest, what I wanted to emphasize, because today is what I'm doing recently, which is bringing breath awareness to the top of the frontal lobes, to the consciousness, because I used to emphasize so much on breathing biomechanics that I don't think I emphasize enough that, hey, are you even breathing in the first place? So we can really touch on that too, and how I really teach everybody, and we can do this too. And I'll challenge you to do it now as I'm talking, because that's our life. We're in discussions. I mean, sometimes it's not talking to a human, and sometimes it's talking to your computer as you type, right, and reading back and forth.
Right.
But, I mean, right now, and if you can, let's just do this practical. Like, can you hear yourself breathe currently?
With these headphones, not very well.
Well, so that's a cool thing. Try, though. So in here, it is the other definition. So here can be a physical sound, if that makes sense. Can you hear it go down the back of your throat? And what most people do, you're special right now because you do have headphones on. Most people aren't wearing headphones, but I get the same answer quite a bit from patients. No, I can't. I was like, okay, well, and I don't know if it's a tough guy, but I like to be involved. So I'm like, make it happen. I don't just give in and give them the answer. So I said, okay, make yourself hear it. So what does everyone do? That's what you did. You breathe in a little bit more aggressively, a little deeper. So that's the first thing I always do with everybody. Can you hear yourself breathe right now? Because I'm doing the examination. I want them to breathe. Everyone, again, maybe you'll see this when you get into practice if we're doing H in space or we're testing eye movements. I would say 70% of every one of my patients they'll hold their breath during pursuits. I'm like, no, don't do that. I want you, now, maybe I do want them to do that because it gives me an accurate, probably, expression of what they probably do on a daily basis, but I want to see what they're capable of doing with breathing. So I'll have them hear or feel the breath, essentially meaning just pay attention to it as I'm talking to you. So right now, maybe you can't hear it, but can you feel it right now? Where do you feel it physically? In the nose, in the back of the throat, in the chest, in your diaphragm? Like you right now.
I feel it mostly in the back of my throat, yeah.
Perfect. So what I would try to do there then is say, okay, focus on it as I speak to you. And I think the challenge, and this is why we can do this for ADHD and focus and attention issues, or you name it, gaze stability even. I like to train people that you're actually very capable of doing intentional breathing while you do activities. So right now, I'll do this. So as I'm doing the physical exam, asking their history, I'll say, okay, go back to your throat breathing, be aware of it, but keep hearing me. And so keep on hearing the back of your throat and keep on listening to me speak. So I do that, and if you can, keep on doing that until we kind of stop it. But I will make them hear the breath, feel the breath. If I have enough time and they are here for specifically mindfulness or anxiety, I will go into make sure you can even put your hand on your belly if you'd like. That's the cool thing about, I think, brain enhancement in terms of for personal gains is you're allowed to cheat. So you can do this if you want. You can do it at your computer. I try to make things very practical. If you drive with one hand, if you want, you can put your other hand on your abdomen for extra awareness. So go ahead, we'll pause. Were you able to do both? Like, were you able to feel the back of the throat breath as I was kind of
I was,
talking
yeah.
just now?
Yeah.
Now, you might have had to go back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
but that's I think the exercise of it. That's how I can, again, because I'm so intensive chiropractic neurology trained.
Mm-hmm.
I can't not stack stimulations. I'm not sure if y'all called it that. We used to, right? You're going to stack
Yeah, yeah,
stimulations. Like,
of course.
we're going to do, balance while we do fixation or something. So
Mm-hmm.
it's my way of stacking their adjustments with a neurological focus, a frontal lobe, insular cerebellum activation, brainstem activation while we adjust, while we do gaze stability, and again, obviously, depending on the case, if we're doing intentional breathing and they can't focus, they're falling over more, they can't fix it, then we alter it. But
Mm-hmm.
I at least give people the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
So, and that's the big picture right now. So I always make everyone become aware of it first. Can you hear it? Can you feel it?
Mm-hmm.
And turns out, man, that does wonders, because say I just do that and I don't have the time to teach them the exhalation focus, the inhalation, whatever we're doing. I have so many patients come back recently and I'm like, so, how's it going? I don't even mean to do this, but because it used to be I had intentional, and I still have these intentional breathing exercise patients, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, you're going to get this as part of your treatment plan. But like I said, I just kind of do it to everybody. So there turns out patients that weren't supposed to be on the breathing emphasis schedule, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
they come back. So, how's your neck? How are your spasms? They're like, dude, the breathing's been helping me. And I forget. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, we haven't taught you that. Like, well, I've been catching myself hold my breath all the time for the past week. So I'm like, beautiful, man. Like, that's cool, because once you catch yourself holding it,
Mm-hmm.
or shallowing or shallow breathing, then you can have the conscious decision or conscious chance or opportunity to then enhance it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I've been getting a lot of success, turns out, is just making people hyper aware of it for the 15, 30 minutes, hour that they're with me, because I would call them on it all the time. Hey, you breathing? Hey, I can't hear you breathe. All right, can you hear you breathe? And I try to make it fun. I'm sure it gets
Mm-hmm.
annoying, but turns out it gets in their head. So for the next week, they're like, dude, I hold my breath all the time.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm picking up my kid, whenever I'm typing, I'll catch myself doing this, and so I stop and breathe. The next thing you know, my pain's less. I'm like, cool, man, that's so neat. And then the other techniques specifically, I do like to do specific focus exhalation. So depending what you read and who you listen to, a lot will recommend inhale slowly and controlled through the nose. 3 seconds will do.
Mm-hmm.
Hold a couple seconds, and then just exhale twice as long. A lot of the guys that I listen to, and consistently in the literature too, is they do recommend exhaling through the lips.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is because the lips take more conscious control than the nose, and we can't close our nostrils very willingly.
Not very easily, no.
Yeah, right. We can purse the lips. We can control lips. We can. So I think and if you leave in the homunculus itself, the lips are humongous.
Huge, yeah.
There's a lot of vasculature there. There's psychological tricks. I'm not sure if you call them tricks, but there, some counselors even said that rubbing the lips is a calming effect. So the lips in itself, there's a lot of importance to them. So I do like to teach. Now with me, it's not just, okay, inhale 3, out 6,
Mm-hmm.
because that's essentially a sigh. We already do that reflexively. So I'm very, again, talking on the emphasis, I'm very big on, okay, if you're going to do 3, 3, 6, hear it. Feel it, feel it, feel it, and then hear it and feel it. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Feel the muscles relax. Allow them to relax.
Mm-hmm.
Feel the exhale. Think about it. Focus on it. That's all you're focusing on. Does that make sense? So when I do 4, 7, 8, 3, 3, 6s, I've been really on this 4, 8 kick again. That's what I originally learned through the Diplomate program. So I've been doing that more. It's very intentional, very slow. I mean, because if you look again, technically you can get the same parasympathetic benefits from just slow breathing. You don't have to always exhale longer. You can do box breathing essentially, if you're familiar with that.
Mm-mm.
It's
I'm not.
essentially you draw a box with your breath. So you
Mm-hmm.
inhale 5, hold 5, out 5, another hold 5. Does that
Okay.
make
Yeah.
sense?
Mm-hmm.
And you can do 3 seconds, 5 seconds, but even doing that, if it's intentional and it's slow inhale, slow exhale,
Mm-hmm.
even though you're not exhaling longer, there is a Valsalva mechanism there, so you can still get a drop in blood pressure, a drop in heart rate, and the focus of it is that's where you get the cognitive benefits, you get the memory benefits, the focus benefits. So
Gotcha.
there's that too.
Very good. Yeah. Yeah. I typically do the 4-4-8 with my patients, but I'm glad you do too. Right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's
Yeah.
for, and to play with that, I I've learned that the more practical we can make this, the better,
Mm-hmm.
because I've had patients try to do a 4-4-8 in the middle of a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, dude, breathe, because they're in the hold, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even I've been doing 4-2-8,
Okay.
inhale 4, hold 2. Now, so this is how I kind of think of it. For me, even if I'm by myself and I'm feeling anxiety or I'm feeling being worked up or I know I need to turn down,
Mm-hmm.
I'll do a 4-2-8 or 4-4-8,
Mm-hmm.
because it takes a little more focus,
Mm-hmm.
gives you enough of the calming benefit. It's long enough that you can do 3 of them and you've reached a minute-ish, right?
Mm-hmm.
But say I want to really distract my mind, really give myself a mental challenge, then I'll do 4-7-8.
Mm-hmm.
If you're familiar with Andrew Weil, he's really big on Dr. Andrew Weil. He's a integrated medicine doc who does a lot of mind-body science, but
Mm-hmm.
he's kind of popularized 4-7-8, because that takes a lot more work. That takes a lot more diaphragmatic control, because you take a 4-second breath in, you're trained to have a breath quicker than 7 seconds, so you have to hold for 7 seconds, and then not only that, not only do you not get a breath after 4 seconds, but then you still have to exhale for 8 seconds.
Yeah.
So 4-7-8 is a good one where I'm like, okay, just lay down, and that's a good. Now, Dr. Weil, I think, communicates it differently. It's his world, it's just what he's done. So he's done 4-7-8. That'll put you to sleep in 3 breaths. Well, that's not true, right? I mean, I've broken that fact many a time, right?
Yeah.
I can do a 24-7-8s and my mind will still keep me awake.
Right.
But now, what I teach my patients in conversation, so
Mm-hmm.
I do 3-3-6s or 2-2-4s, like during my examination with like while you're talking. If like we have those patients that have a lot of history,
Yeah.
and I think it's a good to be, and this is just good practice for any clinician as well, in any human, in any conversation. Sometimes it's best just to listen.
Mm-hmm.
In me, I'm a talker, so in order for me to do that, I must focus on breath.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do a 3-3-6, you don't even know I'm doing it.
Right.
So I like 2-2-4, 3-3-6s because I can do them more incognito, if you will. That makes sense? Like I can do a 3-3-6 in a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I can do it during a break in conversation. 4-4-8s I can do, but for me as a kind of a hyper attentive guy, I need to be able to focus on 4-4-8 or 4-2-8.
Right.
So
Right.
3-3-6, I get a similar effect, the same focus, same activation of the same centers,
Mm-hmm.
but much more practical, much more conversational.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I'm not sure if it does, but
Yeah, absolutely.
that's how I
And
use
that's
it.
a great way to stay engaged, during those
Yeah.
longer conversations, really make sure you're focused and attentive
Yeah.
to, what the patient's saying or what someone else is saying, and just
Yep.
everyday conversation. You had mentioned earlier about, proper breathing mechanics, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think something that we're fortunate to have the background in the chiropractic is, the rib mechanics and the
Mm-hmm.
benefit that being able to adjust ribs provides in oxygenation and then
Absolutely,
proper
yeah.
breathing. So can you talk on that and maybe some things you've seen with just rib adjustments and breathing?
Yeah, I mean, so I take ribs and lumbar for me
Mm-hmm.
specifically. And you hear Carrot talk about this a lot too, and anyone in the breathing world, how much just losing the lordosis a little bit. And you can try it now. Essentially lose your lordosis, slouch a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and then take a big breath in. right, and then sit up with a better lordosis and take a big breath in, there's an immediate difference. So I'm very, I'm very strict about sitting up while we do breathing exercises. If you can't do it easily, just use the chair, right? To open up the lumbar spine so that you take, tension off the psoas muscles in the lower rib excursion in the diaphragm, right? But for ribs, it's, for me, I'm either going to do an anterior or a standing rib almost all patients, or even prone. I'm big. I don't always, and again, complete transparency, I don't always check the expansion the way we were taught. Making sure it's more or less. I don't always auscultate every rib head. It's maybe I should do it more, and maybe after this discussion, I've gone public now about it. So. But maybe I'll do it more. But I think we all know, just doing a good rib adjustment, you're going to get more excursion of the rib cage, which allows you to get more volume of oxygen. And again, not in terms of breathing, I think we all think of, oh, I can breathe better. But the biggest thing too is the diaphragm and rib and intercostal control of getting all the CO2 out. I think, this is not me thinking, I think that's what hurts more, is you'd rather have too much oxygen than too much CO2. Right. They both can kill you, but one of them will kill you quicker and one of them will hurt you faster. So very big in doing upper rib adjustments. Again, if I need to, I'll even do TL fast stretches, whether in whichever way we need to. Even sometimes just drops, even just percussion of the rib cage. I've even do percussion of the lower rib cage to hopefully get some kind of proprioceptive mechanoreceptor input into the diaphragm itself, because there's some people that just don't have good diaphragmatic excursion, and you can adjust the ribs all day every day, they just don't get it deep. So sometimes you might have to check for a hiatal hernia. Maybe not even a clinical hiatal hernia, just as much as they slouch so much that maybe the organs kind of push deeper into their into their ribs, so that when they do breathe, the diaphragm should lower and expand. But sometimes they can't get low, so I will even do little massages on the abdomen to hopefully get a little more stretch, and then pretty consistently after that they do get a deeper diaphragm breath. Great. So I'm not sure if that's what you're asking for, but it's absolutely important. I mean, like you said, we are set up in this profession to be breathing masters, chiropractic neurologists especially. So I happen to be, that's my stuff, man. I think that we in chiropractic neurology you have the integrative medicine, functional medicine, chiropractic neurologist. You have the super intelligent, purely physical. And I'm very much mental based. And man, when you're working with mind, body, the breath is. So we have the best way to stimulate breathing, and that's through adjustments, and that's through adjustment of many of joints. That's what's cool about it. It doesn't have to be isolated to the rib. It could be the lumbars. It could be the psoas muscle, and assessing with that, messing with that. So very, very fun.
And then, we're talking a lot about breathing now, and we talked a bit about the research in the earlier in the episode, but this stuff has been around forever.
Thousands of years, bro. Yeah.
A lot of different cultures, have emphasized breathing, and
I mean, that's the safety net of it. That makes sense. I mean, even in our profession, I think you can respect it. We are on some cutting edge stuff. Thank God we have multiple leaders in the profession that are doing the research that can validate what we've been doing, and more now than ever, thanks to the Carrick Institute and thanks to Dr. Carrick and all these other people he's influenced that are doing research, we now know what chiropractic neurology is doing. But when in doubt, if there is doubt, breathing, like you said, it's been around forever. It's like I'm not recreating anything new. The beautiful thing is, if anything, our profession validates and neuroscience validates what they've been doing for thousands of years. There's not one technique, so I don't have to talk about something so black and white like I think you've already heard. I mean, I am as gray as it gets. My wife makes fun of me and my whole wardrobe is gray, maybe because of my own psychology, but I rarely think of things as black and white. There's always a middle ground. There's always a spectrum. So because breathing has been around for thousands of years, there's a spectrum of ways to do it. Again, neuroscience has been pretty consistent, though, in explaining the benefits of breathing, no matter how you do it. Intentionality matters. Focus matters. But I mean, you have people like Wim Hof. You've heard of that guy,
Yeah,
maybe?
yeah.
I mean, that guy
It's
is
crazy.
on the whole other level, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
why. I mean, he's not doing what I'm doing. I'm not
Yeah.
teaching people to sustain cold and to, summit Everest with boots and shorts on. You're not going to learn that with my techniques. But hey, man, maybe it'll give you the enthusiasm to go learn it.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a safe bet that when you talk about breathing as a clinician, as a human, you're probably talking about a pretty beneficial thing. It's nothing new age. It's nothing like taboo.
Right. It's
Yeah.
pretty obvious. All right.
Mhm.
But I really enjoyed this talk, Dr. Ross.
Good, man.
We're running out of time, but I really appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure, man. Thank you for doing this and allowing
Of course.
us to keep teaching people.
Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts for the listeners or viewers before we go?
Some of my favorite quotes, two of them.
Mhm.
Focus on your breath as if your life depends on it. There's a joke in there, obviously, because your life does depend on it. I took that very serious about 8 to 9 years ago, and it has changed my life. So if there's ever a time that you are focusing on something that is uncomfortable, unsettling, or focusing on something that you want to be better at, like you're enhancing, you might as well throw the breath in there too. In my opinion, why not?
Absolutely.
Because it will enhance it. And then focus on your heart as if your life depends on it. Because it does, and that's everything for the nerds out there. That includes everything connected to the heart too. So the vasculature of the brain, the blood, the actual constriction of it. And the cool thing is, if you just focus on those two, specifically breathing, you can improve the other. I mean, so try to. It's the easiest. I tell people we're about to do the easiest hard thing you've ever done, or the hardest, easiest thing you've ever done, and that's focusing on breath and only breath. And then try to do it your whole life. Why not? So, yeah, that's it. Just focus on your breath for the rest of your life, if you can.
You'll be good.
Why not? Yeah, you'll be good. You should be all right.
Yeah.
And if you're not good, at least you have something to focus on.
No. Words of wisdom.
Yes.
Yeah. So if our listeners wanted to find out more about you, what you're doing, your clinic, anything like that, how would they reach you?
So multiple ways. Facebook. I have the old school college profile, which is just Ross Solis. I do have a public figure page, or the professional page, I think we call it. This is Ross Solis, DC, DACNB, which is essentially a page where I get to share my nerdism, my nerdiness publicly. So anything I read that fits my passion, that I feel will influence a human being or even animals, I guess, I will share it and post it. So there's 2 Facebook pages, and I'll normally share both. We do have our clinic page, Vibrant Soul Chiropractic. We have a Facebook presence. That's the most we have. We don't emphasize our website too much. We do have one, but you can always find us on Facebook. So that's probably the best way. We do have an Instagram page as well, so you can find me through Vibrant Soul Chiropractic, our family health and wellness practice, or my personal or public figure page. It's probably the easiest. So
awesome. Well, thank you very much again for joining me and sharing this topic. I thought it was great.
My pleasure, man. Thank you for allowing me to.
Of course. And this has been your host of the Neuro Wellness Podcast, Dr. Coppus, here in Chicago. Be well.